This is Byron Gordon for the SES Conference Channel, and we're here in San Francisco today speaking with Gord Hotchkiss of Enquiro. How are you, Gord?
Good, good.
Thanks for joining us, Gord. We're here today to preview a little bit SES San Jose. You're going to be moderating a very special panel called the BuyerSphere Project, Understanding B2B Buyer Patterns. And I thought maybe you could share with our audience a little bit about the genesis, the origin of this special project. It's a B2B research initiative that was conducted by your company. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, I'd love to. So the BuyerSphere Project was really looking at what happens when people are buying for their organizations, and it was an area that we felt needed a deeper dive. So we lined up some great sponsors. We got GoogleOnBoardBusiness.com, Marketo, Demandbase, and Covario, and we picked those sponsors not just because they helped us cover some of the costs, but also we thought within each of those sponsors there was thought leaders that were asking really interesting questions. So it was actually a three-phase research project. So the first thing we did is we actually came down to this area and we just talked to a lot of people within organizations who were influential in making purchase decisions for those organizations, well over 100 B2B buyers. And we just started by listening. We just said, tell us about how you buy within your organizations. And we tried to go in without any preconceived notions or assumptions. And that proved to be great because we started hearing things that were really interesting to us and fell a little bit outside the typical process that most people think companies go through. So we started with that. We followed up with some lab-based eye tracking stuff. It wouldn't be Enquiro if there wasn't some eye tracking in there. And then we did a survey, and we've put that together. There's 5 white papers. There's been a number of webinars, and the panel will be an extension of that. And really, we just wanted to understand how those decisions get made internally within organizations, and I think we found some really interesting things that will be that were covered both in the white papers and the webinars and live at the session at SES.
One thing about the project, or that this panel is going to explore or share, has to do with how online marketing strategies became artificially separated from traditional best practices. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we found very early in the research is there's this assumption that B2B buying is this rational, clearly thought out process, and people are people, and people make decisions the same way, whether they're buying for themselves or buying for their companies. There's certainly differences between them, but it's not like we suddenly become coldly rational when we're making B2B purchases. And what we found is that people naturally go back and forth between online and offline influencers. You're going to talk to friends or people you know or co-workers, and you're going to get their opinions, and then you're going to go and test those opinions out. You're going to do some Googling and go visit some websites, but this is back and forth that's very typical of behavior when people are going through buying processes. Yet somehow, when we think about marketing to people, we put this artificial wall between them, and we have kind of our traditional sales and marketing best practices, and then we have this, this digital marketing group that's kind of locked away somewhere in a sandbox, and they're really artificially separated. And I think that's really doing the marketing a disservice. I don't think that you get an integrated approach that way. So what we found is you really need to bring the two together and look at it the same way that your buyer is looking at it. The influences are influences. They may be online, they may be offline, but they all go together and they all work together.
Let me ask you one other question. Twitter is a huge social media tool, and it's getting lots of publicity. Lots of B2B players are interested in wondering how effective it can be used as a tool in B2B. Do you have an opinion on that?
Oh, I got opinions. Yeah, I mean, one of the really interesting things we found in our research was that there's a generational shift in behavior coming. We called it the digital, well, we didn't call it, but it's been called the digital natives and the digital immigrants. And the natives are those that are kind of 27 or younger, and they use online differently, significantly differently than people of my generation. My generation loves email. We love email as a communication channel, but younger people use social networking more, and they do crowdsourcing, and they ask people's opinions through online channels more than I might. right? I still really depend on face-to-face communication. So I think Twitter and other things like LinkedIn and that have a really important role to play. And I think one of the things we're going to be talking about in the panel is this coming generational divide. And I think that it's important for marketers to realize this isn't going to be a gradual trend. This is going to be like a sharp divide in behavior as these digital natives start getting into the power positions, as they start taking on roles within organizations where they have more power and they have more influence. So things like Twitter and other online channels, we have to start understanding that, because we're not going to get a lot of chances to get it right or to figure it out. It's going to move very quickly.
Gord, thanks so much for chatting with us today.
All right, well, thank you.
And there's more to come as we prepare for SES San Jose. Stay tuned to the SES Conference Channel.